Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to be getting our hands on some thermium. And in the past couple of weeks, in discussing the eventuality of us getting thermium, I've come to find out that a lot of people don't even know what thermium is. So I think we're going to go ahead and start there. The first and probably the most important thing about thermium is that its overheat temperature is plus 900 degrees. This makes it incredibly useful as a very late game tech. The reason why is because you can do things like use a thermal aqua tuner to create heat. And whereas steel gave you an overheat temperature of plus 200, thermium's plus 900 allows you to get very creative with some applications. For instance, instead of running a petroleum boiler off of a geothermal spike, you could put a thermium aqua tuner right here and allow it to power the entire petroleum boiler. Obviously, it's going to cost you that 1200 watts, but you can recapture some of that heat and turn it back into power using the steam turbine, or in that case, several. The next thing you have to know is you don't find thermium by itself. You have to make it sort of like the way you have to make steel. And while the ingredients of steel are lime, refined carbon, and iron, the ingredients of thermium are niobium and tungsten. You put 5 kilos of niobium and 95 kilos worth of tungsten inside of a molecular forge, and whammo blammo, we have 100 kilos worth of thermium. And here's the next important point to know about thermium, niobium, and tungsten. Once you've created that first piece of thermium and have that 100 kilos worth, you can then take that 100 kilos worth of thermium, put it in the metal refinery, and you're given 100 kilos worth of niobium, which you can then use to combine with more tungsten to create more thermium. So what this means is that once you get your first 5 kilos worth of niobium, you really never need it again, as long as you have an infinite supply of tungsten. Alternatively, you could also put the thermium inside of a rock crusher and get 50 kilos worth of niobium back and 50 kilos worth of sand. And of course, clay wouldn't make it easy on you. They're not going to put both the niobium and the tungsten sitting on one planetoid. No. In fact, they are on two different planetoids pretty far apart. Here on Eugito, not only does it have the magic tree that's going to be able to give you the resin, which you can then turn to make iso resin, it also has the tungsten volcano, which I'm guessing is right about here. When I zoom in enough, you can kind of hear the volcano sounds in the back. And for those two reasons, it makes this planetoid specifically one of the most valuable planetoids in the star map. Incidentally, there's also a chlorine gas vent and an infectious polluted oxygen vent. Not great. In other words, there's no naturally occurring sources of water, making this planetoid a little tricky to conquer. So that's where our tungsten volcano is. And yes, it's probably the only one in the entire star map. So what about the niobium? Well, it's on your very hot planetoid. In this case, it's called Levito. But what you need to know about it is it's full of magma, a niobium biome, and a tundra biome, and possesses a frozen core. But this challenge is not too bad, because remember, we only need a little bit of niobium, and we can make as much thermium as we want, being that we can turn that thermium right back into niobium. So that's where our mission's going to start today, is on Levito. One of the problems is its distance. Now, from Eugenia to Levito is only a distance of 9 tiles, at least according to Echomath. But we know the problems we've had with rockets, so who knows if that 9 tiles is going to turn into 11.5 when we count the taking off and the landing. We're going to see. So we've crewed up the ESS Let Us Land with Queen Calero and Fangirl. By the way, we received a lot of hilarious suggestions for the renaming of this rocket, but I think Let Us Land sort of eked them out because it seems like that's all we really want these days. We've also made sure to send them off with all the materials they may or may not need. They have 2 tons of plastic, 2 tons of steel, 10 tons of cobalt, 10 tons of igneous rock, and even some reed fiber, just to be able to repair those suits. We also expanded the rocket to be able to comfortably hold 2 duplicants. As you can see, we added another Atmos suit dock, another mess table, and another cot. Incidentally, we were still able to maintain the Great Hall status and the barracks, combine those morale benefits with the fact that they're going to be eating berry sludge for about 105 cycles, and I think we'll be fine on the morale front. So we're going to start off by going right to orbit just to see what our distance is, instead of just selecting the orbit here, because, well, we know how that goes. And without further ado, let us take off. With a range of 19 tiles remaining, it does look like we'll be fine, and that's because the distance to Levito is only 7 tiles away. So let's get them on their way. A couple of updates on the colony while that trip is underway. We finished our naturally planted waterweed farm. We had to add a couple of space heaters because it was a little chillier than 22 degrees in some spots, and 22 degrees being that minimum temperature for waterweed to grow. The power consumption is not a big deal at all. These space heaters are barely ever going to need to run. But because naturally planted waterweed takes 48 cycles to grow, we're still only about a third of the way even with our first planted crops. So I'm hoping we'll see some frostburgers this episode, but who knows? And then finally, we added some more batteries to where we could. If you remember, we had a bunch of open space here where I sarcastically mentioned, what are we ever going to do with this space? Well, we figured we'd turn into another battery box. More batteries, more better. And I'd also like to mention that here at Echo Ridge Gaming, we are proud to announce we've gone 116 cycles without a workplace injury. Of course, that's before we went to the fiery magma planet. So we'll see. Now, we've never landed on Levito, which means there's no rover or rocket platform there. So step 1 is going to be throwing down a rover. Step 2 is going to be using the Trailblazer module. So first, let's see what we can find out when we deploy the rover. Oh dear goodness. Oh, this is not good. If I were to guess, I don't believe we're going to be getting to Ujito this episode. That is a lot of magma to be able to deal with. I suppose to start, we'll land rover right here. Welcome, buddy. You're not going to like this. With rover landed, we're able to get a nice good look at what the planetoid holds, and it's just a lot of magma. Unfortunately, it looks like there is an abyssalite break somewhere here because what was probably crude oil has now turned into nothing but sour gas, and it's at 1100 degrees. There's some of the beautiful niobium right there. Although there is a niobium volcano here too. Would landing a rocket in magma be an advisable or inadvisable idea? Unfortunately, rover can't do anything up here. This entire rock is nothing but obsidian. It kind of makes me want to throw another rover and just let them sink to the bottom and see what we see there. I guess we'll just deal with this. We'll deconstruct rover's lander and then send a dupe down here. Boy, are they gonna love me after this one. We're gonna give HB Fangirl the honor of going down first because they have the super duper hard digging. Queen Claro's good at a lot of things. Digging's just not one of them. Undock their suit, insist they get off the phone and put it on. Seriously, we have a mission going. I know, it's all very interesting. The gossip is great. Can we put our suit on now? Apparently they've gossiped themselves out. Which I suppose this is good. They'll have a nice rest, they'll use the bathroom, and then they'll get in their suit. Alright, Fangirl's finally in their suit, which means it is time to put them inside the Trailblazer module before they want to hang the suit back up. So we'll click deploy, and here we go. I really thought they were fixing that graphical error where it looks like they wouldn't have the top of their suit on. First thing we're going to need to do is deconstruct some of this obsidian, because we're going to need it for ladders. We're also going to need to deconstruct that lander, but rover can do it. With that beautiful steel ready, we can now build the rocket platform. While the dupe gets working on the rocket platform, rover's going to get working on the ladders, and then we're going to have to figure out how to deal with this. My thought is just brute force. Build ladders down here, dig right through all of this, grab the niobium, and hopefully the artifact, and then just leave. Unfortunately, I have a history when we try to brute force things, sometimes things go horribly wrong. It might be better to dig down through here. We could move this magma and then continue digging, and then we get to enjoy the sour gas sauna. We can deconstruct this door and then go through. Because the sour gas is hot, but it's not magma hot. Okay, bad news number 1. Apparently we cannot land here because once again I have forgotten about rocket height. And unfortunately, this is only 23 tiles, which means we need to move the rocket platform. And oh, by the way, Fangirl's tank has 59 kilos worth of oxygen left. So I suppose we're going to put the rocket platform like here, but we have to get there first. So we're going to do the old every other ladder trick. We're also going to deconstruct them because I believe we're going to need the obsidian. And then let's also deconstruct the rocket platform. Now we're going to be cutting it close. Poor Fangirl has already started getting minor radiation sickness, and they've got a sunburn. They also are idling because they think there's brakes. Apparently the brake was only because they didn't have anything else to do because Rover was building the next ladder. But now we can actually build the rocket platform as long as they don't drop the steel or anything silly. We're down to 39 kilos worth of oxygen in Fangirl's suit. Rocket platform is complete. Let's get that rocket landed immediately. We don't have much time to spare. Fangirl's already missed dinner and their bathroom break, and now we've passed out on top of a ladder. It's okay. Rover will do the work while you sleep. And finally, Fangirl is going to make it inside the rocket, where they are not feeling too great. But at least they're getting to use the bathroom now. In the end, they are hungry, they have low morale, they have major radiation sickness, and they're a sunburn. And they're also throwing up. Gotta get rid of that radiation somehow. Now, the good thing about obsidian is it doesn't melt inside of magma. The bad thing is you can no longer do the door trick. You remember, you used to be able to build doors sort of in a downward direction and push the magma out of the way. We now have to think of a new way to do this while also somehow forming a liquid lock, because it'd be better if we didn't, fill this entire cavity with magma, which kind of makes me want to do something like this and then continuously dig down through here. In this way, the magma would come down, form a little liquid lock here, but then not keep going. And then all we'd have to do is dig down, and then we could grab all of this beautiful niobium. Unfortunately, all this magma being in the way tends to cause a problem. But this is open to the vacuum of space. So I'm thinking we might be able to chew through this by putting tiles down and forcing it to be dumped into space. I think I kind of like that. So we'll start off by putting one obsidian tile. Ooh, what do we have? Igneous rock. Unfortunately, igneous rock will not work. We have to use obsidian. So we'll start off by putting one right there. And we might as well grab some of this while we're at it. Now, Rover can build the tiles, but unfortunately they cannot dig through the obsidian. And I'd rather HP Fangirl not have to work right now, but they'll slowly get better. We'll throw down one layer here, then we'll throw down another layer of tiles and continue that process until all the magma is gone. And just in case, we'll put down an emergency triage cot. We're not going to end up needing it. With all this obsidian now available to us, I think we're going to end up putting these duplicates inside the Spacefarer module and then not letting them out. And that way we can rely on Rover to be able to build the tiles, because Rover don't care. Rover can withstand up to 2400 degrees. With this door in place, we will just not allow anybody through it, and that way Rover can get to work doing the good stuff. Since we've been coming all the way over here, we've now revealed even more of the planetoid. Look at all this beautiful niobium. We're going to take it all. Still haven't found the niobium volcano. I think we're going to let the dupes out for just a minute to be able to build this storage bin and throw all the obsidian in it, because right now it's taking Rover way too long to be able to go back and forth every single time they build a new tile. By having the storage bin, it's going to cut Rover's transport time down a lot. Now, to be clear, radiation vomiting is not a workplace injury. That is a workplace sickness. Two completely different forms, different procedures. So yeah, there's no workplace injury here. Just a little vomiting. And based on what their current absorbed rad dose is, they should be good in 3, 4, 5 cycles. Well, if they'd stop going outside, because it's 375 rads per cycle. I mean, that's a lot. But really good for some solar power, though. Look at those lux. 1 million lux. The good news, though, as soon as we get sort of inside here, the radiation's not going to be an issue anymore. All that obsidian is picked up, so we're now going to not let the dupes out again, and then we will let Rover go to town in here. We are once again racing against the clock, because Rover's chemical battery doesn't last forever. We're down to about 130 kilojoules, and we have a lot more tiles to build. Oh yes, the magma smushing has begun. Begone, magma! Fangirl is still getting sick. They are down to 265 rads. Hold on a minute. Isn't that higher than what it was before? Okay, after that bathroom visit, they're down to 170. They're gonna be fine. Rover, my boy, you have done a phenomenal job. Look at this. No magma. In fact, we don't even need to do all this complicated building here. We can just dig right through. And what's great is we don't even need to get into the sour gas area until the very end to grab this office mug. Now sure, this is a lot of digging, but it's nothing the dupes can't handle. I'm thinking maybe for this mission, the Queen's gonna need some digging skills. They have a morale requirement of 11, but even in the rocket, they're still getting 29 morale. So I think we're fine with going with some hard digging here. Well, rovers managed to get themselves stuck. I'm trying to think of a good way to get them out. I'm wondering if maybe a tile here would work. So I had an idea that I ultimately had to scrap. I was like, why don't we just open this door and let this sour gas out? It'll eventually vacuum out, and then we won't have to worry about it. We can even set up a little temporary living area in here. It'd be nice. Unfortunately, the sour gas fluctuates between 1,000 and 1,200 degrees, depending on, whatever the sim decides for that second. But an Atmos suit has a scalding threshold of 726, which means the dupes would still end up getting scalded in the sour gas, and that would really slow down our work. In other news, I think I have found the Niobium volcano. That little tile worked like a charm, and now Rover's helping out with the ladder building. I think we're also going to take advantage of a lot of this obsidian and take some of it home. Obsidian's one of those materials that's hard to find, but has a great melting point at over 2,700 degrees. Oh, look at this. We've discovered niobium. Winning! Here's another little small glitch. Obviously, we can see here it's pitch black out. Yet Rover has the lit workspace buff. Man, I would really like to get some solar panels up here. If I were to guess, I'd say this is probably the hottest planetoid in the star map. Oh my goodness, there's more niobium down here. Looks like we're digging further down. There we go. Oh, look at this. There's even more over here. Now, niobium itself liquefies at 2,476 degrees. I'd like to unearth this volcano just in case we ever want it. So I think we might, before we leave, trap some of it in and just let the volcano continuously erupt. It'll slowly heat up the surrounding area if we can put an environment in here. And it just so happens that we have a bunch of polluted water. Yeah, hey, Mutt, you'll never believe what he has us doing now. Yeah. We're literally walking through magma, just getting more stones. We don't need more rock. I know, I've already told him. Delivering the niobium back and forth was really slowing us down, so I've unchecked the storage bin in here, and we'll wait until they get all the digging done, and then we'll activate this storage bin to collect all the niobium. Then we'll drop it from here, and then finally deliver it into the rocket. That way they don't have to keep going back and forth, which is really slowing down progress. And there she is. The Great Niobium Volcano. Now, you may have heard me tell you that all you really need to do for most volcanoes is just strap some steam turbines on them, fill it with steam, and you can walk away. The Niobium Volcano is not the same. This niobium erupts at 3,200 degrees, and its eruption period is quite laughable. 86 seconds out of every 11,000 seconds. Which means it only erupts once every 19 cycles. And I was thinking about uncorking it before we leave. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is all this igneous rock and obsidian would melt under the temperature of that niobium. And when magma gets to 2,356 degrees, it turns into rock gas. And that's not something we would ever be able to deal with. So we're just going to leave it bottled up. We're going to dig all the niobium we can find out of here and then call it a win. Incidentally, we have found the frozen core. And while the star map does call this a tundra biome, don't kid yourself. There's nothing growing in here. The temperatures are about minus 100. The good thing being that the abyssalite did hold and that there is no leaks, but it really makes me want to make some. Then we could have the niobium just drip off, fall all the way down to the frozen core, where yeah, it'll melt, it's going to create steam and everything else, but it'd be fun to look at in a few hundred cycles. We had a small hiccup, and that's because the dupes couldn't get out of the rocket module, and that was because the carbon dioxide was backed up, so none of the oxygen was ending up into the suits. Luckily, our friend Rover, who just doesn't quit, was able to build a niobium gas vent and some obsidian pipes, so now all that carbon dioxide and everything else that doesn't belong in the rocket is being exhausted out the side. Something I'm gonna have to remember for these longer away missions. I also think I found another bug. This one's a positive one. Rover hasn't shut down. You can see his chemical battery is at 0. It even has the message that says they've been shut down because their battery's been depleted and they can't be recharged. The only thing I can guess is that we've kept Rover busy. They're responsible for taking all the niobium and dropping it off here, and we're able to get that done just by making it a priority of 1. Now don't get me wrong, I love seeing Infinite Life Rover. I'm just not sure how it's happening. And I think my experiment is coming to an end because I can't corner build any further because of the way we started this whole process. I mean, it got us 2 levels down. And if I knew Rover wasn't gonna die, I could trap the dupes in the rocket. In fact, we'll go ahead and try that. And then Rover can build the ladders and the tiles to get rid of all the magma. All right, well, that wasn't too shabby. Now we just have to deal with this amount of magma. I've got a couple of ideas. First, we'll use a pitcher pump and siphon out all the magma that we can from there and dump it up here. And then we'll keep dropping more and more debris into this part by using an automatic dispenser. And eventually that debris will cause all this magma to turn into igneous rock. At least that's the plan. We'll see how that goes. Step 1 would be building it not too low to where the platform is actually sitting in the magma. It can only be the little liquid picker upper vines that can be sitting in the magma. We'll try again. There we go. And now with an enable auto bottle on the bottle emptier, this shouldn't take too long. In fact, I can even extend this out. And that way the pitcher pump can reach down further. And apparently Rover can use the pitcher pump and the bottle emptier. Way to go, buddy. The time has come that we actually had to repair some suits. So we put a small exosuit forge here, and we're in the middle of putting some insulated tiles. At first I was like, oh, I'll just put some regular tiles and some drywall here. Unfortunately, this obsidian is 1500 degrees. So we want to put a little bit of polluted water or regular water right down here. And that way this generator and the exosuit forge don't eventually overheat. Although I don't think it's very necessary because it'd be such a long time before they overheat. In fact, let's just cancel all those. We repaired an entire suit, and the exosuit forge only went up a couple of degrees. We've reached the end of where the pitcher pump can reach, so we're going to start corner building again, eventually having the wall sit here, and then we'll be able to siphon up the rest of the magma via the pitcher pump. It's going to take a little bit longer, but I think it's probably the safer route. And you know, here on Echo Ridge Gaming, we're all about safety. And there we go. This will be the last bit. Then we're going to dig down into here just to open this to this frozen core. Probably better if we did 2 rows. And then we're going to see if this Niobium volcano, if it's still not dormant, will be able to drip down here and eventually fall into the tundra biome. You know, for science. We finished pumping all of the magma and are now drilling down into the frozen core. Everything is perfectly okay. But now we have one remaining problem. The contents of these boxes that we really want, especially the 2.5 tons of niobium, are up over 1,000 degrees. Rockets aren't made for 1,000 degrees. I've tried putting an insulated tile here, and it may help a little, but we're just gonna have to get home very quickly. With everything dug out to the frozen core beautifully, it is now time to unleash the beast. We're gonna get in here, we're gonna dig this out, and then we're gonna try to analyze it just for the giggles. Now the volcano is idle right now, which means it is still going to be able to erupt, but like we said before, it doesn't erupt but once every 19 cycles. Although when it does start erupting, it produces a ton of niobium every 4 seconds. That's a lot of niobium. Here's hoping that the viscosity is such that it will fall and drip down here. By the way, Rover's still going. He's the robot that just doesn't quit. I wish we could rename Rover, because then I'd call him Super Rover. I know, very creative. I almost forgot, while we're here, we need to build our mini pod. I think this is a good enough spot. Should be far enough away from the disaster that's going to happen when this niobium volcano erupts. We've finished our analysis of the niobium volcano, and it looks like we still had 5.5 more cycles until it erupts. The next time we see this colony, it should look a little bit different. We have our mini pod down, our niobium is ready to be hauled off into the rocket, and hopefully we don't melt the entire interior cabin while we do it. An update on poor Rover. You'd think you'd be dead by now, but watch what happens when I say, hey, let's grab all the abyssalite. Oh look, he's back alive. Isn't this great? It's Infinite Rover. So after quite a few failed experiments that we'll call alternate timelines, I can't get the niobium in here. Anytime that I do, as soon as the dupes enter, there's something to do about the thermal conductivity of the suit while holding the niobium that just transfers way too much heat. And despite the fact that the niobium would sit in the storage bin on top of the insulated tile just fine, and the top of the rocket being okay, it's the act of actually bringing the niobium in through the threshold that is causing the rocket to overheat many times. Now, I consider this an acceptable use of the alternate timeline theory only because I couldn't figure out what it was causing it. And like I said, the best guess I have is that while the dupe is holding the debris in the suit, it's causing everything to heat up too much. But as soon as they drop it off, it's fine. So in this timeline, when Queen Calero is feeling a little bit better, we're going to try removing the rover module and putting a small cargo bay in. And then we're going to load the niobium into the cargo bay. I don't know what to tell you. Something's either bugged or has changed, because I've transported niobium and other things that are 2,500 degrees plenty of times without much of a problem. The key being this insulated tile. Now, it does eventually cause this interior to heat up, but by the time that happens, the rocket's long since been home and it doesn't matter anymore. I also thought it could have been the water sitting on the ground here, but I did try mopping the water up just to make sure it wasn't the liquid accelerating that thermal conductivity, and we continue to have the same effect. So something to do with the suits, the debris, and or passing through this interior hatch. Sadly though, during all these, as we're calling them, alternate timelines, because I restart, rover finally shut down for real though, and somehow is erupting igneous rock. Probably something to do with the magma they were holding. And apparently Fangirl is not having a good time of it, because they're sitting and just rocking back and forth at the entrance of the rocket. Once again, like I said, there's a whole lot of bugs going on. So we're going to do this a little differently. And that's by using the solid rocket port loader. We take the conveyor loader, attach it to the solid rocket port loader, and all the niobium gets loaded up via shipping. And before we leave, it looks like we may actually get to see the niobium volcano erupt for the first time. With 2.5 tons of niobium all loaded up, it's time to get out of here and bid this hellscape goodbye. Good riddance. So I know I said that we're going to be able to get thermium today. Well, I bit off more than I can chew. But we did get niobium, and that's a great start. And even better news, Chef Naz is producing frost burgers now. The dupes are loving it. All of their morale is in the 40s and 50s now. Our lettuce farm is working out great. We now have over 40,000 calories worth of lettuce to last us until the next harvest. Not that it matters, because we already have 526,000 calories worth of frost burgers saved up. And the niobium volcano? Well, it was a bit anticlimactic. The niobium turned into a tile fairly quickly and then has blocked all the rest of the liquid niobium from coming out. In fact, not one bit came down here to our tundra biome. So next episode, we're heading to the other planetoid, where we are finally going to discover the tree, what I think is the tungsten volcano, and get working on some thermium and some iso resin. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments below. I'm especially looking forward to reading everything about the, quote, alternate timeline we're on. But if you've never seen the other timeline, does it even exist? So until next time, I'll talk to you soon.